Welcome to Create Today podcast. I'm your host, Karen Stanley, and this podcast is all about how to create the life that you want one day at a time. And my beautiful guest today is Lisa Small. She's so many things. She's an amazing mom and wife and inventor. I don't know, is it called inventing something? I don't know what it is.
We'll go with it. I'll take it.
Good. We're going inventing. We're going to tell you all about all of that. Lisa, thank you so much for being here with me and sharing your story and sharing your time and your talents with us. Thank you.
Oh, Karen, that was such a wonderful introduction. I'm like going to get teary already. No, I so appreciate you and I appreciate the opportunity and hope the people that listen to this to gain something that helps them about creating the life that they want to live ultimately.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have so much to tell us. Let's start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your childhood. You said it was pretty quote unquote normal.
Right. You pick up the kids' book and you have the white picket fence and there's the house. And...
Did you have a picket fence? A white picket
No,
fence?
I'm just kidding. But that's how I portray it to people. It's it was your normal middle class Midwestern upbringing. My dad owned his own business, so he worked a lot of hours and was the financial provider, and my mom worked part-time and took care of our kids. And so there was nothing crazy different about the way I grew up than a lot of other people around me.
In Minnesota?
In Minnesota, yes. Yep. So
what was your dad's business?
He was a pharmacist. So right out of college, he opened a pharmacy in this small town that we lived in. And I grew up laying on the floor in the shelves, between the shelves, like after school, or if I had a sick day, because my mom had to go to work, I had to go to the pharmacy. So, yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. So that was crazy. I mean, and it actually taught me from a super young age the importance of treating people right, and not just in a sense of good customer service, but it was such a small community and it really, people cared about each other. And so you just treated people because you cared, you treated them well. And yeah, from as little as I can remember, that was instilled in me, watching my dad work.
I know when anybody talks about the childhood or what was like back then and the community, and the first instinct, my first thought is like, take me back, just take me back. Take us all back. I know. And then I'm like, I sound like my old grandpa, back in my day. Oh, I get you, grandpa. Now I'm starting to get you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I don't know if you're like me, I did like the ping pong where it was like, yeah, I grew up and then I was like, oh my gosh, get me out of here. I'm going to live in the city. And then now I've reverted back to like, take me away.
Get me out of the city.
Yes.
Did you go to college in the big city?
The big city of Des Moines, Iowa.
Ooh. Which means the monks kids, if you didn't know that, it's French for monks.
I did not know that.
You didn't even know that? And you lived there?
No.
Des Moines, that's not really how you say it, but it's French for monks.
Huh.
And sorry, my eyes like all watering all of a sudden, so that's nice. So what did you major in? Because I also forgot to mention that you are a first form athlete. And were you always an athlete?
I'm a first form Legionnaire.
Legionnaire is right.
I would love to be a first form sponsored athlete eventually. I actually don't consider myself very athletic. I still to this day cannot ride a bike and stay upright. So I was a swimmer. Yes, really. I cannot. There's something about it. So I was a swimmer. I did fine in high school, but then I just started running right before I left to college. And that just built this habit of taking care of myself, essentially. And it was something I could fall back on no matter how chaotic life got. It was like this dedicated amount of time that was just me and my own thoughts. And yeah, and over time I've developed an interest, obviously, in personal fitness and being healthy and leading by example for my children. That's really important to me. And so, yeah, it was such an honor to be accepted into the Legionnaire program because it embodies all the things that I personally find important.
Yeah, that's so cool. Did you swim in college?
No, I had an offer to do that, but ultimately decided that I should get my education instead, and focus there. So I actually went to pharmacy school in Des Moines, and mostly because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I worked in my dad's pharmacy, and they were like, "Great, you're going to go to college. What do you want to do?" And I was like, "I'll just be like my dad." So I got my degree in pharmacy and in business, and was like, all right, I'm ready to move back and take over the store.
Is that what you did?
I did not take it over. I came back and worked for a number of years with him, which I will treasure forever, working alongside my dad in the community where I was born. It was so incredible. But no, I made the decision. My two girls were very little, and I wanted to be able to focus time on them and not have to be so present in the business. And so, yeah, I made the choice to step away, and he eventually sold a number of years later, which was good for him. So all's well that ends well. But yeah.
Yeah, you got married. You were a baby when you got married. Tell us that story.
Oh, I was a very, very, very young child. Yeah, we got married at 23, and
At college?
we were still in college. I was finishing up my pharmacy degree, and ended up graduating just a couple months before my oldest daughter, was born. And like everybody says that's been divorced, it all happens for a reason. But I really think it was the first time I ever became acutely aware of how I made decisions to externally make me feel better, to fill something inside of me that I hadn't taken time to fill for myself. And that was difficult to learn. And so it wasn't a pleasant time or a pretty time, but ultimately it, took me down the road that I'm at today.
Mhm. Do you think that, do you mean, I just want to clarify that you made decisions that make you from external sources that make you feel better. Did you feel like it was, that's kind of like the schedule for life, so to say, like you go to college, you get married, you have babies, and you stay at home? I mean, is that part of what you mean by making that decision to get married so young, or can you clarify?
Yeah. I think there's a little bit of that. Like, here's your natural life path, and this is what your parents did. And so, go to college, get married, have a kid, go about your life.
Making them happy, was that do you think that was intrinsic
No,
part of it? No? Okay.
no, for me, it was, I think, just feeling self-worth. Like, if I think this is what I'm supposed to do, if I do this, then it will mean that someone will love me forever, no matter what. Like, that's the way that, I grew up in the Lutheran church. You get married forever. That's the way it is. And so I had this false sense of security, and it tried to make me feel like, well, then I'm lovable. Nothing will ever go wrong. And I never built the confidence that I needed. I never did anything on my own. And that sounds really crazy. That's why I'm saying it. You go to college, but I never set out on my own, and found my feet.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy. I remember looking back over the years, my life, I've never lived by myself ever. I went from roommates to husband to kids to, husband, obviously my husband now, but I've never been by myself ever. And so I don't think it sounds crazy. I was just letting you know that.
Yep. Thank you for
Like,
validating.
how many years into your marriage were you like, oh shit?
Oh, actually, it was before we even got married. We talked about calling it off pretty close to the wedding, and I was too embarrassed to not go through with it. Which, again, you look back and you're like, what are you doing? But it's wanting to please. And part of my journey has been recognizing when I'm doing something to seek validation or to please someone outside of myself versus is this really serving me and who I am as an individual and where I want to go. And I just didn't have that ability to discern at that moment.
Mhm. Most of us don't. You were 22?
3, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you didn't do that. What was the wedding day like? I mean, you knew you didn't cancel it because you just didn't want to inconvenience anybody and didn't want
Right.
to, you know, that walking down the aisle. What was that like?
It was fine. I mean, I don't have a lot of memories from it, which is crazy. I remember feeling uncomfortable. You know, it's like when you have your set of morals, this is not to say there was a moral issue, but like if you're doing something that's outside of your moral compass, you know, like you just have that feeling. And I just remember going, oh, I feel so uncomfortable and what now? But I'm going to make it work. Like I can do this. And yeah, the year later, we had our first daughter, and like any amazing wise woman, thought that I could fix the problem by having a second daughter right away. So my girls are 18 months apart. And
It's
yeah,
like that saying, you know, when your marriage is bad, let's just have some kids. You know,
that's
it's like,
right.
that's like saying like the carpet has a stain on it. Let's burn the whole house down.
Burn the house down. Yep. You know, or you can look at it like just rip the band-aid off. All right, we tried it all ever out.
Yeah, I know. I know. Did you feel like you just need to make sure, you know, you really want to say to yourself that you really did give it everything and you really did try everything? Or were you just, it's just not gonna work out?
It was just done. I actually felt like when I was having my girls, like that was going to somehow cover or fill what was missing in the marriage. And so if I just poured in and did all of that, that the rest of it would figure itself out. And it didn't.
Yeah.
And I tend to take a long time to reflect on things, but when I make a decision, that's it. And so yeah, just one day I was like, this isn't working and I'm done. And it is what it is.
You just said, okay.
Yeah. Well, no. In the end, it all worked out. No, I mean, there's so many things that I would go back and do, and yet I'm so grateful that I messed so many things up. You know, a lot of people make mistakes, but they don't make them until they're later in life. And you know, he never saw it coming. I never said a word. And that really has stuck with me, because how can I expect in any relationship someone to be able to change course or respond differently or bring something else to the table if I am not open and honest and willing to share with them? And so that was one of the lessons that I had to look in the mirror and say, all right, what's your part in this? Because you played a big part in how you got here. And yeah, you might have been the one that made the decision, but you're an equal part in the ending of it. So
Yeah. Yes. It's so good. My story is very similar. My first marriage. It took me a really long time to learn how to communicate, and having those really uncomfortable conversations, even now with my
yeah.
amazing, is still uncomfortable. Do you think it ever stops being uncomfortable to be really vulnerable with your partner?
No, still struggle and I work hard, probably like you. The only difference is I'm aware that it's uncomfortable and I can mentally put myself in a place to have most of the conversations, because you and I have learned, like, you don't always have to react in the moment. You can call pause, like time out and step away and come back. So I've gained tools to be able to do it more positively or in a more constructive way. But I don't think it will ever be something that I'm completely comfortable with.
Yeah, it's what I was thinking of this past week or two. I don't think it ever gets easier. You just have to get more used to being uncomfortable. You just have to get used to it. You have to just, I know it's like a cold plunge or something that
Yeah.
I also can't do. You know,
Yeah.
it's never gonna not suck.
Right.
You just have to condition yourself to do things that suck. I think that's really what it comes down to. If you really want a great relationship and you want that intimacy that can only happen
Yeah.
if you are, if you're honest and vulnerable.
Yeah. And I use the question a lot of times, like when I'm frustrated with something, or someone or whatever, and sometimes I journal, sometimes I go on a God walk, sometimes I just, sit. But it's, what if I don't have this conversation um, with them? What's the outcome that's likely to occur? And if the answer is that it's going to potentially erode trust or break down a relationship or cause a conflict to continue, that's my indication that I really need to have that conversation. Sometimes it's like, well, if you don't have this conversation, you're probably going to seem less crazy because, you're really stressed and this is, you kind of blew off the handle. Don't say anything. So it's just a good question that I've learned to be able to characterize, like, do I need to have this conversation as uncomfortable as it is, because it's ultimately the best for that relationship.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome. So what was your life like as a single mom? Is that when you
Oh,
work full time?
yeah. Yeah. So when we got divorced, I had to go to work full time. Um, and it was hard. I struggled with um, not being present as much as I wanted to be, and at the same time, I was able to find positions where I could be probably more present than a lot of other women, which was fantastic. I could build my schedules where I could get them off the bus or whatever it was. But it was a learning curve, and eventually I caught the career growth bug, and and then it flipped to, what am I losing by not being all the time with my kids or even part-time, to what am I teaching them? What skills am I personally developing that I can share with them so that they can be ahead of the curve when they hit, you know, high school, college, go out on their own.
Yeah. And then you had a major upset in the apple cart in 2017. What happened?
Yes, I was living the best life. And yeah, I got told that, the organization at the company I was with was going to be outsourced and all of our jobs were being removed. Um, and a lot of people go through that, whether it's seasonal or there's a layoff or whatever it may be. I don't think it ever gets easier. And then add on top of it that you're the breadwinner, and I don't know how I'm going to take care of my children, keep the status quo, and kind of got smacked in the face with, like, you don't really have any great transferable skills. And
Is that really
it,
true?
uh, it was a little bit. I worked the first 12 years of my career in pharmacy, and this was the first job, and it was in the pharmaceutical industry, so similar but more corporate environment. Um, and I knew pharmacy. I knew how to talk drugs, which is great. I knew how to do patient care, but when I looked at, hey, now I'm interested in climbing a corporate ladder and developing my career in a lot of other areas, I haven't built that skill base. And so I panicked. I was not not the mentally resilient person I am today, and struggled a lot. And really just, who am I? What do I do? Like, what's the point? And it took me a long time, and it actually took an individual that had never met me taking a chance on me and offering me a job in something I had never had experience in to kind of pull me out and give me a shot. But yeah, that was probably the lowest point, actually. I mean, even above getting divorced was that sense of responsibility that you have, like, I have to take care of my kids, I have to make everything okay, and then going, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this, and how am I going to build the skills simultaneously while I'm putting myself out there, so that someone would want to hire me into a position that I would like to be in.
Was your dad still with us during your or during this part of your life?
He was, yep. He had sold his pharmacy by that point. I knew I didn't want to go back to doing what I had been doing. I felt like there was something else that I was being called to do. I didn't have as deep of a faith, like I mentioned, or the mental resilience. And so it was just like being caught in a whirlwind, and you're trying to grasp anything that comes along to get your bearings so you know which direction you're headed.
How much time did you not have a job?
Not very long. So that's the good news. I ended up I had a little bit of a runway. So technically out of work about 6 weeks, which was recoverable. Thank goodness. A lot of people aren't that lucky. And so I was able to get my footing and start down a path that at least I could provide and get experiences that I could leverage for future roles, which was amazing. When I got laid off, the HR woman that, was sent in to talk to us, and I'm crying and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And she was so calm and collected. And she was like, of all the times everyone comes in and I have to have these terrible conversations, and there's not been one where someone hasn't landed on their feet and it's been as equal or better of an opportunity. And I remember just shooting daggers at her with my eyes. I was like, that is the most insensitive thing you could say right now. And how many years later I look back and I'm like, she was so right. Like, she was absolutely right. I actually was going to reach out to her on LinkedIn and let her know how everything ended. But it was such great comfort if I had been open to hearing it. Just in the moment I wasn't. So it just was kind of funny, because I found that to be true for a lot of other people too. They always land on their feet.
Yeah, that's amazing. Did you have some kind of point where you said, or you thought to yourself, I really want to, or I need to strive better, or I want to work on my mental toughness, or, my mental, what, did you have some point? You said you're not as mentally tough as you are now. You weren't.
Right. Yep.
What happened? What's the antithesis?
Yeah, it's pretty anticlimactic actually. So I started at this position, and I was there about a year. And my boss at the time ended up taking an external position, and on her way out was so kind as to say I would be a great people manager. And I got promoted into that position, and had never had people management skills at that time. And I was the most junior person on the team. And it was almost trial by fire a little bit, like, all right, I'm in it. And also like, what do I need to do to be the best example? Because I now have people with eyes on me that are looking for guidance and direction, but they're also looking for their own development and their own journey. If I don't have my stuff together, like, I'm doing them a disservice. And that to me became the flipping point where my career was about me versus my career is about the people that are on my team, that I'm leading, that I'm developing, that I'm coming in contact with. And so that's really where I dove head first into personal development. How can I learn better leadership? How can I be mentally tough, physically healthy, emotionally?
What's the first book you read?
Actually, it was Thank You for the Feedback.
What was it? Sorry, you just
sorry. Thank You for the Feedback.
Oh, I haven't read that.
It's a phenomenal book. I actually read it periodically, and it's all about how your mind filters feedback and how you react when you hear things, and then obviously the flip side is how you can deliver feedback so that people can hear it. And I picked it because was not a strength of mine. You know, you go in and you sit in your performance review or whatever, and you're like, okay, we're going to talk about your strengths. And I'm like, okay, good job. And then they go, okay, now we're going to talk about some other things. And I would just shut down. And so when I stepped into that role, I was like, I really need to be able to hear feedback, genuinely hear it, but also then develop the ability to discern what is true. And if it's true, what I can do about it. And so, yeah, it was a great first step for me.
Mhm. So then you had to learn how to give and receive. You had to also give it out too, because now you're leading people. Yeah.
Right. And
So,
like our prior conversation, you know, those hard conversations never get easier.
true.
Yeah.
With your team members at work, with your friends, with your kids, with your
Yeah.
parents, you know, in all relationships.
Yeah.
That's so great. And how did it come about for you to create this awesome app? Because I want to talk about that next.
Yes.
What happened? You and your brother just sitting around writing on napkins or what?
No.
That's how I envision it.
That's how you see it, yeah. He's in
Drinking a
Colorado, we're
beer.
like snail mailing. I got this great idea. We actually didn't really start having true conversations about habitual growth until about a year and a half ago, but had been on our own personal development journeys, dealing with and so we had this weird time where we were both working on ourselves. We understood like, hey, we need to prioritize and structure our days because we've set goals for ourselves. We need to come up with some way to track them. We understand, you know, the criticality of building positive habits in your life that become second nature, that you don't have to think about them. And about 3 years ago, we started exchanging on text like, hey, all right, what's your goal for this quarter? What's your goal for this year? All right, great. What are you doing today? And we would just start checking in. And then pretty soon his wife was like, hey, wait a minute, what are you guys doing? Like, I want to get in on that. And then a team member of mine, actually from that position, because we would talk about it, I would use the similar concept with my team. So they would come, want to move professionally. And so we would do the same concept. All right, where do you want to go? How are you going to break it down? We're going to have these check-ins. And so I had some team members that joined in. And so we built this accountability group over time. And about 18 months ago, Nate and I were like, this seems like we're wasting a lot of paper. I bet we could create an app, not only for tracking, because then you have it all in one space, but also because there's such strength and power in visually seeing what you've been doing, and not even just like how much progress you're making, because that can be incredibly motivating. But like, I look at the screens now, and if I filter by quarter or by month, I know exactly which days I really need to kick it in. And I think my worst days are like Tuesdays of all days, you know, where I tend to do less of the things that are going to move me forward. Or
Interesting.
yeah. Or
Did
like,
you ask anybody else for the same? Like if you had anything in similarity, like, is your brother on Tuesdays too? Yeah, I'm just curious if anybody else had the same.
we've exchanged that information. We haven't gotten to that level of vulnerability. We're like, okay. We still actually text our stuff every single day.
You do?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Only
cool.
because the version 2 is not built yet, but it will allow sharing of that information within the app. But yeah, we still have our group, and we still screenshot and we send our successes, and like, here's our streaks of what we're doing. Here's any goals that we've accomplished. Because I will tell you what, on Sunday morning when I get up, and the last thing I want to do is like have to sit down and prioritize my day and go, all right, today is just another day that I'm moving forward. What am I doing? I've got 4 other people that I know are sitting there and they're waiting. And as soon as the first person sends it, everybody comes in. And so it's just that collective momentum too. You know, like, people are rooting for you. They want you to win.
Mm-hmm. So I just want you to tell our listeners that haven't seen the app yet, tell them all the cool things it can do.
Yes. So the app is called Habitual Growth. And you can find it both in the Apple Store or Google Play Store. So it's out there, it's available.
Habitual. That's not habitual.
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 Thank you for
Just to
clarifying.
clarify.
I'll work on my enunciation. Yeah, so the app is available. You can download it. It will give you a free 30 days to try it out, see what you don't know. If you go to our website, it gives you a little bit more information. You can also contact us for sure. I'm more than willing to hop on with anybody if they're using it. It's so important that people use the tool to its maximum ability because it will change the course for people. But it's pretty simple. It lays it out. So you'll log in, you'll set up your account, and then you specify what goals you want, and it limits it so that you're not crazy because, we want to stay focused, but what are they? Make them measurable, make them time bound, like put them in there in your face. Like, what do you want to do when? And then it'll switch to go, okay, you've set these goals. Now, what are you doing tomorrow? Tell me what you're doing tomorrow to move you forward. You also have the ability to set habits. So if you're trying to break a bad habit, build a positive habit, you can enter that in as well. And it will allow you to track, and it will add it to your list every day as a reminder. Hey, you're working toward this habit. You need 70 days in total. So you can build it and then work, then it will become a proven behavior, or you'll go on to develop another habit. And then when you add each of those things, it will allow you to assign a category. So it was really important to me because I've been in times where I'm 99% focused on my professional life and everything falls away. And so to create an app that gave you a holistic view of where you were spending your time. So you're telling me that these are your goals. You're telling me that these are your daily priorities. All right, what buckets are they filling for you? Have you captured your spiritual category? Are you spending time on mental wellness, your physical fitness, your professional career, building in your community? And so you have the ability to categorize every single action. So when you look over time, hey, I'm spending my time here. Does this actually align with what my priority is and where I want to go? Because sometimes it can be really eye-opening. Like there was one time I opened it and it was like 70% of your actions are on physical fitness. And I'm like, well, that's not helpful right now. Because our goal was to, grow habitual growth and, by X amount. And so it creates these guardrails for people to go, am I on the right track or not? And also give you that motivation because you see, hey, this is where I started. Oh my gosh, I'm 65 days in. And if I keep doing this for this many more days, I'm going to reach this goal. And so it just is all encompassing, I guess, is how I view it, is like whether you're data nerd like me or you just want to build some positive habits, or you want the ability to intentionally structure your day. It takes you from start to finish.
Yeah, it's so cool. Why do you think habits specifically are so important?
I think positive habits are very important. Yeah. I think because they give you a foundation to fall back on. So whenever I've struggled with something or there's been a life change, I literally fall back to the lowest level of the habits that I've built. And so when we're in good times or we're coming out of bad times, working to build that next step in your foundation so you don't fall quite as far the next time, or you get up a little bit faster. That to me is really the purpose. I mean, if you look at a single habit, sure, you might lower your cholesterol because you eat healthier, or you might find better mindfulness because you've practiced meditation for 30 days, but you put all those together over time and you're building your mental resilience, your mental toughness, you're building accountability and confidence with yourself. And so when something happens and you are taken out at the knees, like you bounce back, or you don't fall quite as far because you come back to what you know, and that's the positive habits that you've built.
Yeah. So true. What about it helps you? I mean, I love this idea where once you make something a positive habit, make it actually habitual, then your brain can go on to, can focus more on like the next step or what would you say to that? Once you build like one or two, like, do you try to build, how many at a time do you think that people can actually build at the same time?
Yeah, I personally don't try to build more than two, and usually I limit it to one, because there's some sort of disruption that building a habit causes. And so if you get too much waves in the water, it gets harder to breathe. And so I usually take one or two and I focus on those. And then when I hit that 70-ish day mark, the app will actually ask you, do you want to convert this to a proven behavior? And if you say yes, it will drop it in, and you can continue to track it, because a lot of people want to know, hey, how many days in a row have I read 10 pages of a self-development book or done something? So if you like that data log, you can still continue it, but it falls to the bottom. So then you can go, okay, now that's part of my daily routine. What's next? Is there something else in my life that I really feel like I need to focus my time and attention on to change? Or maybe not. Maybe you're in a season where, yeah, I've built some positive habits, but really I need to focus on this aspect of my professional development or building a community for my business. And that's where your time and priority goes. And so that's what I love actually about the app, is it flexes and accommodates whatever season people are in.
Just like you said, sometimes your physical fitness is the most important thing. If you have a health challenge or a health crisis or, whatever, sometimes you're, it's not the most important thing and something else is. Now you have an app. So now your most important thing is going to be different than it was even 3 months ago.
Right. Yeah.
6 months ago, your most important thing was to get this thing done and launched and coded and perfect, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so then you can track based on what season you're in and what is going to be the most important thing. What's your biggest priority? Do you personally make quarterly goals? How do you do your goals? What do you have a time period in general?
I usually won't do anything less than a year. Only because I find when I make quarterly goals, for whatever reason, I tend to shrink them. It's like, oh, it's only a quarter, I have to make it like achievable. And yes, your goals should be achievable, but there should also be an element of stretch. And so when I look out over a year, I go, I want to be here. And then I add like a little bit more. And so from there, I will think about the steps that I need to do on a quarterly basis, but I don't necessarily enter them as goals. I just know how I'm tracking. And so when our accountability group has quarterly check-ins, how are you trending? All right, we're a quarter of the way through 2023. Okay, where are you at with all your stuff? Great. Okay, now we're 6 months in. And just having those conversations versus making it so granular that people become overwhelmed that they're not making progress fast enough.
Yeah. Can you give us some examples? I just want our listener to give some examples. If they're starting off and they want to have a goal, they have a goal, and they'd really like to put a plan in place. Can you give us some examples? For instance, if you wanted to, from either yours or your families or your networks or any of the users, just kind of walk us through, just so we can kind of figure out, like, just kind of learn how it is, what the process is like.
Yeah. For me, I try to pick 3 or 4 every year.
It's just maybe 3 or 4 goals. That's it.
Oh yeah. Yep. 3 or 4. And I put them in buckets based on priorities. So I will, like, my family is my number one priority. So I will build a goal that centers around them. And that could simply be like this year, my goal was 5 out of the 7 days. I'm going to close my computer after 8 p.m. and spend an hour watching TV or going for a walk or something, because I do not dedicate time and carve out time without a prompt. I get carried away and all the other things. So I build a goal around them. And then I build a business goal. Okay. So for Habitual Growth, our business goal this year was to launch our MVP by June, and begin development of version 2 by August. So that would be the 2023 goal for that. And then I build a professional development goal because that's important to me. So this one was actually a 2-year one, being promoted to VP within 2 years. So those were my 3 buckets for this year. People can do them differently. If they look at them and they say, like, my business is my number 1 priority, maybe they have a goal around sales, maybe they have a goal around email outreach and engagement, or maybe they have a goal around social media presence and building followers. So it can be broken down. It's so individualized. And that's why I say, if people download the app and they don't know, to send us questions, because we're here to answer them. We've got some on the website, but really it's, tell us where you're going, because we can't answer that for you. Once you give us an idea of what you're looking for as your vision, we can help you break it down, but really it's so individualized.
That's so cool. And speaking of being cut off at the knees from time to time,
Yes.
you just got cut off at the knees again.
I know.
What the hell? What happened?
When everything's going right, you can be sure something's going to go wrong.
There's an opportunity is going to present
That's
itself,
right.
what you meant.
That's
for
right.
something amazing and something new.
Yes. I recently experienced another layoff in my day job, and wasn't expecting it. And it was a great experience, actually. I know you and I talked about a little bit about, the sting, and like you've got to mentally wrap your head around the emotion of what's happening. But the reaction and ability to move on in a positive manner between that right now and what I did back in 2017 is light years away. And to me, that's proof of the habitual growth process, right? So you're building all of these behind the scenes traits and skills to be able to handle what comes at you. And so, I mean, literally I found out on a Friday, and I think I had like a 2-hour moment. I called my brother and I called a friend, and then it was like, okay, I can't control that, but what can I control? I can move my list, I can make my list, and I can start to execute on the things that I need to do that are going to move me forward. And it wasn't pretty. Like, there were things like I would go through the motions, like I'd go to the gym and I'm like, this is the last place I want to be, but I'm here because I've created the habit of allowing myself space for this purpose. And so it didn't matter if it was a great workout or a terrible workout, keeping that promise to myself that I was going to stay consistent no matter what was coming and what uncertainty was, is really what got me through. And so now it's been a week and a half, and I just see opportunity ahead. I really do.
Oh man, I just can't help but be in amazement and see, it's so obvious to me, but I just want to say this to our listeners. So obvious that every single thing you've done from 2017 to 2 weeks ago, when you got laid off again, totally unexpectedly, you're amazing at your job and you've been at the company for a long time, a great job, all that. You're like, you never thought that you would get laid off that Friday to 1 week and a half ago, right?
No.
Never thought. But here you are, you're building consistent habits and you're building goals around your personal development, mental toughness, your physical fitness. It's not a by chance. that you still felt the emotion, and it was shock, and it's hard not being, not being wanted and accepted. And you didn't think that this was going to happen, but to be able to shift quite quickly, it's because of all of the things that you've been doing, and that all of the things that are all on this one app in one place, right?
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like I said, I think it's just a testament of the process, and it's habitual growth is not meant to be something you do for 30 days or 90 days. It is something that you commit to because you're working to live with intent and deliver the best version of you. And by doing all of those things, by even just sitting down and defining goals, so many people don't. I love to ask people in random calls, like, hey, what goals are you working on? And 9 out of 10 people don't know, or I'll get a very generic answer. And it's like, how do you know where you're steering the ship if you don't know what direction you're going? Like, you're just wandering. And then if you don't know what habits you're building or what promises you're keeping to yourself, because you know where you're spending your time, you've chosen where to spend your time because it's in the direction that you want to go, like, of course you're going to feel lost and like batted around because you haven't built that framework that says, I am choosing to do these things because they are in the best interest of me, my family, my community, whatever it might be. And so over time, just by doing, like, it sounds so silly, like those simple things, like you build that confidence to go, I'll be okay, and you've built all these skills along the way. So you get somewhere where you get taken out at the knees, and then you go, all right, that really, really sucks, but I've been able to build these skills in this way. Okay, I'll go over here and I'll start building something that I haven't done before, or learning something new, or rebuilding something in that same direction. But it gives you a sense of calm because you've already done the work that you need to do to know, like, if something comes out of nowhere, you're going to be okay.
I love how you said that, because I think that's probably the most important facet of it, is that you've proven to yourself every single day, over and over and over and over and over, I can do that. I can do hard things. A lot of different beliefs. You're changing your neural pathways, and you're changing your beliefs. Everybody is. When you set a goal, I make progress towards it, then I did what I said I was going to do. So there's so many things that are happening just in those little, like you said, it's so simple and seems so stupid, just so childish to go. Set a goal to have a 22% body fat, and then go to the gym and lift weights every single day or 5 days a week, and you do it. And it doesn't really matter what you do once or twice, but consistently, your brain is changing, and you're redefining how you believe in yourself.
That's correct.
And that's the only way you can build belief in yourself and build the self-worth, to go, when something quote unquote horrific happens or unexpected, challenges will always come up. You've already built the belief in yourself that you already can do hard things. You can look for opportunities. You are fully capable of navigating whatever it is that comes your way. And I really think that's a super important part about creating habits and creating goals and making progress and tracking the progress.
Yeah.
That, it's so important. You're changing your brain. You're changing the way you believe about yourself. You're changing how you handle everyday challenges.
And when you see the data, you're right. You're changing your brain because you're creating the habit. And then when you see the progress that you're making, so let's say you're going to make 10 cold calls a day for the next 2 months. Okay. So you start down that journey because you've got some sort of business goal.
Yeah.
And you get to the end of the 60 days, and now you see the data, right? And you go, awesome. I did it 50 out of the 60 days, like, blah, blah, blah. And then you take one step further and you go, what did I learn? I know I can see that I've done 50 cold calls now in the last month. What worked? What didn't work? How would I change my approach? And so it just allows people to take that data and see like how much progress they've made. And then they ask like the questions behind it so that they can do it better the next time.
I love it. It's so, so smart. I think it's so important. I think it's just brilliant, but also what people may not realize is that how it helps them, setting little goals and creating new, positive habits. It will change your life in not tomorrow, like you said, not in 30 days, not 60, not 90. But you're proof that in 6 years, you don't even recognize the person that you were 6 years before now. You just like, you don't even think the same. You don't react the same. You don't have the same stress. You don't have the same responses to basically the exact same scenario just happened 6 years ago, happened again.
Right.
How devastated you were back then and how hard of a struggle it was. You're not even the same person because you built yourself into a whole different person.
Yeah. And even beyond that, the other part that I didn't share is like the tangible results that come with it too. So as you're building that personal accountability day in, day out, people notice. And so when I started that new job in 2017 to where I just ended up, I 4x'd my salary and climbed the corporate ladder by 5 rungs. And so learning to do that day in and day out, it matters because people want to learn from you. And so I love the mental resilience and all of that and the toughness and to be able to know that I have control over what I'm doing. But the flip side of it is like there's actual tangible results that people will begin to see. And so they look back and they're like, okay, great, I feel better. But then I did this in my career, or my business did this, or my kids, look at how, much our relationship has improved because I've set aside time every single day to be focused solely on them. And so that is, you can't put a price tag on that kind of change either. And so, yeah, and it's why I'm so passionate about habitual growth, about the process, about how it can help people in any walk of life.
And tracking it, because I would love to have that data from, 23 years ago, or not 23 years ago, or 4 years ago, when, because I've always been a goal, setter.
Yep.
But I never had the technology or the way to really track, really look at it. So I can look back at it, 5 years from now. So that's what I'm really excited about, to be able to, not only achieve goals and build positive habits, but also to have the data so that I can actually look at it 2 years from now. And I can remind myself how much I've learned and how much it's so great. I think that's what I'm most excited about.
I know, me too.
Have the data from a couple years from now. Have I really progressed? Have I really learned, more? Am I really where I want to be? Did I, grow as much as I wanted to? And, I want to be looking back at 2023 through 28, in 2028, and I will have all of it.
Yes.
So
yes.
I think it's so cool. And
I know.
a genius. We're going with inventor. I don't even know if that's what it's called. Do you invent when you create an app? I don't know. Yes, you're an inventor. You have a patent, right?
Yes, that is correct.
You have an, didn't you get like one of the certificates? I know my daughter did when she created an app.
I don't know. It might have come to Colorado.
Yeah. The inventor with the patent number. Like you get like an official seal.
Hang it up on my wall.
It's so great. So, all right. So what's next for Miss Lisa Small? You're recently married. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. We're coming up on a year, so that's
your
exciting.
Daughter graduated from high school. Congratulations.
Oh, yes, it's mind-blowing because I don't think I'm over 21 yet.
Same. Weird.
So weird.
So weird.
Yeah. So my my next daughter graduates next year, so we're keeping on that train of college tours and party planning.
Yeah.
But for now, I'm waiting for the door to open, and I firmly believe that it will. Everything that we're doing with habitual growth feels good, and it feels right, and there are windows opening and conversations happening that lead me to believe that the path is already there. I just have to have faith that that there was a reason for where I find myself. And I think that's amazing. I would never have said that before. I would never have been so certain in the uncertain, and I love that. So I can't really say what's next.
I love that. You're just sitting in the in between and like actually just being present, just saying, I know the next opportunity is coming. I don't know what it is, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. Can't wait to see what is the next step for you, and then the app, everything that you're working on. I really appreciate you taking the time to share it with us. Where can people find you? They want to follow you and they want to get the app. They go to the app store. It's called Habitual Growth. And then where else can you find? You have a website, and you're on Instagram.
Yep. So our website is www.habitualgrowth.com. If you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, we have pages there for the mobile application, for community building, if people want to ask questions. If someone wants to reach out to me personally, either Facebook or my Instagram handle is Midwest Mom ×3, which is an X ×3. And so I'm also happy to connect that way. Habitual Growth is really a passion project for both my brother and I, and we believe so deeply that people's lives will be transformed through it. So if there are questions or people need extra guidance, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lisa, for being here and sharing with us. And thank you. I will put all of her, her deets in the description. Don't worry.
Right.
And listeners and anybody watching, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for supporting my show. Thank you for listening and taking the time to be here. God bless you. I love you. Have a great day. And just remember, you can create the life that you want, and just one day at a time. Listen to Lisa.